Testing.
Hey, I'm here.
What's up, sis? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear you. What's going on?
All right. Just want to make sure. Are we on now, or are we just doing a test?
Yeah, we on,
Okay. All right.
we
How you
on.
doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. So, hello, my name is Tiffany French, and welcome to my channel. So, I'm here live in Fed with brother Michael Scott, who is my guest, and we're going to be talking about the pandemic shots, and he's going to share his views and the reason why he is very skeptical about the vaccination and why he feels that the vaccine is not really such a good idea. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn it over to you, brother Michael,
All right.
and I'm gonna let you talk. I'm gonna let you go in details. So
Okay.
Michael, tell me a little bit about yourself before you get started.
Well, as you know, the background. I used to be a part of the Armor Raw squad. I ran with those fellas for a while. Um,
Yeah, I remember.
yeah, we used to do the presentations, and we're talking what, maybe 5, 6 years ago, downtown Atlanta, at the what restaurant was that? What was that? The
We done did like a couple of events together, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I remember you did a couple of events with Brother Unk and
yeah,
at a while back, yeah. So it
yeah.
was like maybe about good 7, 8 years ago. So
Correct.
yeah, I
So
remember.
yeah, I continue doing my research. Although we still cool, I still communicate with them every now and then. On certain subjects, we just I ain't 100% with that camp, and that keeps things interesting, right? The black community is not a monolith. We don't all think the same. We don't all act the same. We don't all do the same thing. So we keep it real diverse.
Okay. Well, it's good to reconnect with you again. It's been a long time.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell me, why are you skeptical about the vaccine, and what is it about the vaccine that makes you real skeptical?
Well, there's a couple things, and I'm becoming familiar with this program, so I'm going to share my screen ultimately,
Okay.
just to go over a few items. But and you can walk me through that if I can't do it. But one of the things that stands out is the initial response to it, and it seems like the preparation for it was already laid out. So, a couple examples of that is um, there was scenarios like you probably heard of Event 201 that happened in 2019, where John Hopkins and the Bill Gates Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation, they did an event scenario basically outlining what would happen during the pandemic. There was also Crimson Contagion, which was another pandemic scenario where they laid out a situation where how the government would respond in case of a pandemic. There was the SPARS pandemic scenario, which was actually done in 2017 with a whole lot of detail. And if you read that document, it was prescient in the way that it predicted a lot of the little idiosyncrasies and details that are happening now. So, with that, along with comments by, noted medical professionals, like I guess you can call Dr. Fauci the pandemic czar. And if you listen to his statements in 2017, it makes you wonder, wait a minute, is this thing really natural? So it's making me wonder that because just of those things I just listed. But in addition to that, I don't think scenarios just happen by accident. I don't think viruses just jump out of nature by accident um, in this way, right? And we can get into the details of that. But one of the things that some of the scientists have come out and said, and I can show that clip too, is that this particular virus seems to be designed for human beings, in that if it developed in the wild amongst bats, then you would see a natural progression rather, in that particular animal species, and then it would gradually get into the human species. But they didn't see that. They saw a virus that they say jumped from a lab, or not a lab, but a bat, and then got into human beings through a wet market, and then it evolved, and now we have what we have. But the structure of the virus, from what I've read and what I've seen, seems to be uniquely designed to affect human beings. Again, we can go into that. I'm not an expert on virology or anything like that. I'm not trying to come across as that, but I do come across as very skeptical. Um, and the last point I'll make on my skepticism, I think it's valid. John Hopkins University, which is playing a significant role in the development of information related to this pandemic, happens to be the same university that was responsible for the Tuskegee experiments, and I'm sure everybody knows that history. They're also the same university that was responsible for the Guatemala experiments with syphilis and gonorrhea. So the idea that these groups are not nefarious, that they don't have plans that may not be on the up and ups in the best interest of society, I think we would be naive and fooling ourselves in thinking that that is the case. So I've been talking for a minute. You have any questions about what I said so far?
Okay, so just help me understand. You think that the virus was created in a laboratory versus being something mutated?
Yes, I think that the gain of function hypothesis, which again I can show you some documents or some videos
Okay,
where some experts are talking about it, is the most
okay,
likely way that this virus has come about. So let me get right into the presentation. 3 points I
sure.
want to make. The
Okay,
first point is where did, pardon me, where did it begin and how? And this is relationship to the virus. The second point is what effect has it had on the society? That's the second question. And then the third question is why was it allowed to happen? All right. So let me show you. Well, you tell me what's the best way to share a video right now.
okay. So if you go down at the bottom of your screen,
I see where it says
it,
share. Okay,
it's
cool.
gonna say share, and then you're gonna see where it says share screen.
Okay. All right. Let me do that. I'm queuing up this video. So I'm queuing up this video right here of Dr. Fauci, and I'm going to click share, and then you can look at it. So share video file, share screen. All right. Let's see here.
And then it should show up where it says entire screen. Well, I don't know what type of computer you have. What type of
It,
computer do you have?
I got a Dell. I think I figured it out. Do
Okay,
you
I
see it
see
now?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see
So
it.
this is a video of Dr. Fauci. I'm about to play this, and he goes in to talk about how there's going to be an epidemic. So let's take a listen.
Okay. Can you turn it up?
Yep. Is that good?
I can't hear it.
All right. Let me do this. There may be an option on here where it
Yeah,
says the
it says share audio. Do you see it when you click on it?
share audio cam mic.
No, no, no,
Uh,
no, no. Okay, when you go under share,
yeah,
and you're gonna see where it says share your screen, share screen. At the very bottom, it should say share audio. Once it pops up,
you
you
went out
see
for a minute. What did you say? Repeat that and go on the video.
it? Okay. So when you hit share,
Yes.
right, you're gonna hit share screen,
Yep.
and then the window is gonna pop up, and it should share. It should say share audio at the bottom. Do you see it?
I see it. I see it. Okay.
Okay, you're gonna click on that. But what we're gonna have to do is, in order for the video to play,
Uh
so
huh.
it won't make no echo in the background, we're gonna have to mute our mics.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I'm looking through it now where it says share video and audio.
All right.
Um, let's see.
Yeah.
Share your screen. Okay. All right. So let me go back to this. I'm sorry for the delay.
Yeah, it's okay.
There we go. Share audio, share screen. Okay.
All
I think
right.
this is it.
Okay.
All All right, I'm gonna give it a
So,
shot now.
Pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand.
He said, "Can you
okay,
hear
what
me?"
you say? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Did you hear the point where he said there will be a surprise outbreak in the new administration? How could you know that 3 years prior? You know what I'm saying? I mean, think about that. This guy said he was a part of 6 administrations prior to the Trump administration, and he was able to predict that there's going to be a major outbreak. I mean, first, have you ever seen this video before, and what do you think about it? And he happens to be the czar of the pandemic, so to speak.
I never seen this video before, but I heard Dr. Fauci. Now, at that time, it seemed like he was only predicting, but it can't just because somebody predicts something does not always mean that it's absolute, you know. So it's just based on the prediction. So that's just what it is. Um,
But in this case, you agree his prediction was true.
I mean, he was able to predict the outcome of there was going to be a virus, and he was trying to warn people, getting people prepared for that. But I wouldn't say that into the effects that the government created the virus or tried to do something that was going to make the human population sick. I just think that, based on his studies or based on his research, that's what he was predicting at the time being.
Okay, that's valid. I think with the material that I'm going to show you, and you see all this stuff lined up, it'll make more sense as to why I think what I think because of these predictions that have come true. But I have another video that I want to pull up, if that's all right.
Sure, no problem.
Do you want me to replay what he just said so that in case anybody missed it?
You can go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so let me replay this one more time. And I'm going to start it now.
Preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with. And the mistake that so many people have made is something that several of our panelists have already referred to. And that is a failure to look beyond our own borders in the issue of the globality of health issues, not only things that are there that will come here, but surprises that we have. Now we're talking about what an administration might face in regard to emerging diseases. And I'm going to just put them together into newly and re-emerging diseases, and I'll get in a second to what I mean. So from my own personal experiences, why I can say with some confidence that history tells us that we will definitely get surprised in the next few years. So I had the opportunity of dealing very closely with President George W. Bush and his staff in dealing with how we're going to address bioterrorism. And I had a very interesting experience, which I'll always treasure. So I had the privilege of being on Air Force One, and the president called me up to his compartment and said, "Tony, what scares you most about potential microbial attacks?" And he was talking about a terrorist. And I told him, I said, "Mr. President, I worry more about the natural occurrence of an influenza pandemic and the ongoing plague of HIV than I do about a bioterror attack. What about the lessons learned? I've already said it about HIV. They're about the same. Global surveillance, transparency and communication, infrastructure, capacity building, coordination and collaboration, the platform technology that I mentioned. And I am very much in favor of what everyone has said here today. Namely, we do need a public health emergency fund.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. So now there's another video that I also want to show that deals very similar with this, and it has to do with the administration's response to it. So I'm about to pull that up now. All right. About to pull this up. Share screen. Audio. Screen 2. Okay. All right. So this was about a year ago, right before the lockdowns happened. This particular video. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Here we go.
Mike, yes. Matt just said one more thing. There's been some discussion about China and what they knew and when they knew it, and I've been very critical. We need to know immediately. The world is entitled to know. The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world, and that puts a special obligation to make sure that the data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here. We're in a live exercise here. We're in a live exercise here to get this right. We need to make sure that even today, the data sets that are available to every country, including data sets that are available to the Chinese Communist Party, are made available to the whole world.
Ask you both if that's all right. Mr. Secretary, Senator Johnson has suggested that you and the administration may be overreacting. He said, we don't shut down our economy because tens of thousands of people die on the highways. We don't shut down our economies because tens of thousands of people die from the common flu. At worst, 3.4% of Americans will die from this virus, he said. What do you say to people that have that view? That's 11 million people he's talking about.
Well, I can just say the entire world is agreeing with us because.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Obviously, the key point in this press conference was that you had the Mike Pompeo, the guy that was speaking right after Trump in the middle there, who said that this is a live exercise. It's important that people know his credentials. At the time he said this, he was the Secretary of State. But prior to be appointed to the Secretary of State, he was the head of the Central Intelligence Agency in the United States, which if anybody knows about the CIA and what they've been responsible for, not only, drug dealing and assassinations and murder and the drone program, but they are not an organization in terms of policy that has been, let's just say, without blemish. So he comes with those credentials, telling the entire world, I don't know if it was by a slip or what, that they were in the middle of a live exercise. And I think that's profound. So what do you think about that?
A live exercise?
Right. So I don't know if you know much about exercises that the government puts on, but there's one particular example that comes to mind is that on 9/11, 2001, when the attacks happened in New York City, the United States was running 4 military exercises on that day. Now, this came out in congressional hearings, and the reason why that is important is because during the confusion of those exercises, the military said that they were unable to respond as fast because they weren't sure if they were still in the exercise or was the event real. So you will see things happen like this periodically where exercises become events. And that's exactly what happened, I think, in this scenario, that the exercise was not known. So, do you want me to replay the video? Or did you hear him actually say that?
You can continue to play the video.
I mean, you want to rehear it because that was the main point on it. Was that it
Uh,
was the exercise?
Now, is there more to the video, or that's just?
No, that was the clip that I wanted you to hear. So, and then here's another clip I'm going to pull out, which has to do with gain of function, because all this is tying back into my main point, was that this could have been developed into a laboratory. So first I showed that Anthony Fauci predicted it. He said we will have a surprise event, a surprise pandemic outbreak. And then you got the former head of the CIA saying that this was an exercise. So now let me show you another video. And this video deals with, let me pull it up right here now. This video deals with a congressional hearing that actually just happened, where this particular subject was brought up. And it was an exchange between Dr. Fauci and a United States senator regarding gain of function. So let me see if I can find that. All right. I'm about to share this video now and pull it up.
Okay.
People have died from this pandemic, and that should cause us to explore all possibilities. Instead, government authorities, self-interested in continuing gain-of-function research, say there's nothing to see here. Gain-of-function research, as you know, is juicing up naturally occurring animal viruses to infect humans. To arrive at the truth, the U.S. government should admit that the Wuhan Virology Institute was experimenting to enhance the coronavirus's ability to infect humans. Juicing up superviruses is not new. Scientists in the US have long known how to mutate animal viruses to infect humans. For years, Dr. Ralph Barrick, a virologist in the US, has been collaborating with Dr. Shi Zhen, funded by the NIH. The collaboration between the US and the Wuhan Virology Institute continues. Doctors Barrick and Shi worked together to insert bat virus spike protein into the backbone of the deadly SARS virus, and then use this man-made virus to infect human airway cells. Think about that for a moment. The SARS virus had a 15% mortality. We're fighting a pandemic that has about a 1% mortality. Can you imagine if a SARS virus that's been juiced up and had viral proteins added to it, to the spike protein, if that were released accidentally? Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect.
Are you there?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me show this to you real quick, because he just said that the senator was wrong, that they were not sharing, or they did not support or fund gain of function in Wuhan Live. Did you hear Dr. Fauci say that? He just
I
said
did hear him say that he was incorrect.
yeah, he said he was incorrect, that we did not fund gain of function. All right. So here's an article right here from USA
What article
Today.
is that? From USA Today?
Yeah. And so this article was a fact check, because again, people have been saying this about Dr. Fauci and saying that the Obama administration had funded gain of function, and just been, everybody's talking about it right now. So the fact check says yes, $3.7 million. Can you see this? Am I sharing this on my screen?
Can you try to zoom it up? Is there a way you can zoom it up?
Let me see here.
Zoom your screen
Share
up?
screen.
Okay. Can you zoom it in?
Yeah, let me.
Okay, I can see it.
All right.
Yeah, you
So
might want to just zoom it out just a little bit.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now
So
show me a part where it says.
so this was the fact check, right? That's what this whole article basically was described. That was the headline, that it's being fact checked, that it's not true, that the Wuhan lab was not being funded. So origins of coronavirus have been increasingly hot button issue, allowing conspiracy theories to gain traction online among high profile officials. Okay. Then it goes on to say, um, claims that the U.S. helped fund research into coronavirus spread, obtained documents that show the Wuhan Institute of Virology undertook coronavirus experiments on mammals captured more than 1,000 miles away in Wuhan, funded by a $3.7 million grant from the U.S. government. The report gained traction on social media and claimed it was repeated by political figures. Okay, so these are the people that repeated it and all that. During a news conference, and then it goes on to basically just try to debunk the article. But I think articles like this are deceptive because what it doesn't do is it gives people to just read the headline and keep moving. But if you keep reading, in which I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this, you go all the way to the end of the article, you will see that in fact there was money given to the Wuhan lab, but it's in the
Uh,
last paragraph. Okay. So listen to this.
okay, it
Says,
says our ruling partly false.
right. But remember, the title said it's going to be fact check and basically destroy the claim. It says a total of $3.7 million was not given with the Wuhan Institute of Virology, only about 600,000. So that's still over $500,000 to fund gain of function research. And it was done not directly from the Wuhan lab from NIH, which was headed by Dr. Fauci. No, it was funded through a pass-through agency called Echo Health. So that's why they said partly false. So the United States was involved in funding gain of function in the Wuhan laboratories. And this USA Today article proves that. Again, how could
But
Dr.
it also,
Fauci know? Go
oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but it says also fact check. Coronavirus not man-made or engineered, but its origin remain unclear.
Right. I mean, anybody could really type that. But I'm going to show you how some top people in the field believe otherwise. All right. So I'm going to click out of
Okay.
this article here. Oh, and it's important to mention too that a whole lot happened leading up to this coronavirus event. For example, more than 1,300 CEOs left their job in 2019. They just quit. People retired, but they just left. It was almost like they got information that we didn't. Now, of course, all of this is speculation. You could even call it circumstantial evidence, but we know that people in power do things that the average people don't know. So, anyway, let me get out of this screen here and pull up the video. Plug up my computer. All right, I'm back. Let's
Okay.
see here. All right, so that was the exchange with him and Rand Paul.
Oh well, I would like to see what Dr. Fauci had to say to Rand Paul.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, let me pull
Yeah.
that up. To be fair, all right.
Okay. Oh, I can't hear it.
All right. Let's see here. You got to click on share audio every time, I guess. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Millions of people have died from this pandemic, and that should cause us to explore all possibilities. Instead, government authorities, self-interested in continuing gain-of-function research, say there's nothing to see here. Gain-of-function research, as you know, is juicing up naturally occurring animal viruses to infect humans. To arrive at the truth, the U.S. government should admit that the Wuhan Virology Institute was experimenting to enhance the coronavirus's ability to infect humans. Juicing up super viruses is not new. Scientists in the U.S. have long known how to mutate animal viruses to infect humans. For years, Dr. Ralph Barrick, a virologist in the U.S., has been collaborating with Dr. Shi Zhengli of the Wuhan Virology Institute, sharing his discoveries about how to create super viruses. This gain of function research has been funded by the NIH. The collaboration between the U.S. and the Wuhan Virology Institute continues. Doctors Barrick and Shi worked together to insert bat virus spike protein into the backbone of the deadly SARS virus, and then use this man-made supervirus to infect human airway cells. Think about that for a moment. The SARS virus had a 15% mortality. We're fighting a pandemic that has about a 1% mortality. Can you imagine if a SARS virus that's been juiced up and had viral proteins added to it, to the spike protein, if that were released accidentally? Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Do they fund
of
Dr.
Virology.
Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain of function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain of function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines.
Did you see how that was a double answer? He said Dr. Barrett does not fund gain of function research, but if it is, it's under our guidelines. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay, I'll replay it and then you can. All right, I'm starting it again now.
Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain of function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain of function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina.
You don't think inserting a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain of function?
That is
you would
not
be in the minority, because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain of function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the progress reports, it is not gain of function, despite the fact that people tweet that.
So do you still support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute? We
do not send money now to Wuhan
Do you
Virology
support
Institute.
sending money? We did under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant. Do you support the money from NIH that was going to the Wuhan Institute?
Let me explain to you why that was done. The SARS-CoV-1 originated in bats in China. It would have been irresponsible of us if we did not investigate the bat viruses and the serology to see who might have been infected.
Or perhaps it would be
China.
responsible to send it to the Chinese government that we may not be able to trust with this knowledge and with this incredibly dangerous viruses. Government scientists like yourself who favor gain of function research.
I don't favor gain of function research in China. You are saying things that are not correct.
Government defenders of gain of function, such as yourself, say that COVID-19 mutations were random and not designed by man. But interestingly, the technique that Dr. Barrick developed forces mutations by serial passage through cell culture that the mutations appear to be natural. In fact, Dr. Barrick named the technique the no-seum technique because the mutations appear naturally. Nicholas Baker in the New York Magazine said nobody would know if the virus had been fabricated in a laboratory or grown in nature. Government authorities in the U.S., including yourself, unequivocally deny that COVID-19 could have escaped a lab. But even Dr. Shi in Wuhan wasn't so sure. According to Nicholas Baker, Dr. Shi wondered, could this new virus have come from her own laboratory? She checked her records frantically and found no matches. That really took a load off my mind, she said. I had not slept for days. The director of the gain of function research in Wuhan couldn't sleep because she was terrified that it might be in her lab. Dr. Barrick, an advocate of gain of function research, admits the main problem that the Institute of Virology has is the outbreak occurred in close proximity. What are the odds? Barrick responded, could you rule out a laboratory escape? The answer in this case is probably not. Will you, in front of this group, categorically say that the COVID-19 could not have occurred through serial passage in a laboratory?
I do not have any accounting of what the Chinese may have done, and I'm fully in favor of any further investigation of what went on in China. However,
sis,
Yeah.
I don't know if you hear how he giving lawyer speech. And when I say lawyer talk, I mean he's cutting around the edges and just not answering the question directly. He's answering it indirectly. For example, he says in that last statement, he does not have any knowledge on what the Chinese may have done. So in a way, he's throwing the rock and hiding his hand because he's probably correct in saying, yeah, I haven't sent them any money lately. But if I sent you money 5 years ago to do research and you've developed it and that research got out either accidentally or intentionally, I still gave you the money. Do you understand where I'm coming from? The money was still given to them to develop gain of function research. No?
Okay, but I mean, I get what you're saying, but it sounds like to me what he was trying to get at was when the money was funded to China, it was funded for their research project on this virus, which we know as the COVID-19. I don't think he was saying that. I think what he's trying to clear that he didn't have anything to do, or he didn't know that they were going to just do it in the sense of trying to use it as a biochemical weapon or something, but just as a research project, or just research on this particular disease that is going to cause the effects, or things like that. That's why I think what he was trying to get at. I don't think he's saying that, oh, I knew that they had intention on doing something very malicious other than researching.
No, that's a valid point, and that's why I have so much documentation to share with you, because I think this is the initial response of most people who either see congressional hearings like this, or if they hear about it, like they give him the benefit of the doubt. But when I continue to show you as much data as I'm going to show you, you'll see how that benefit of the doubt has been built up with his reputation, but it has no. It's like a ship with a hole in it. It's gonna sink, and it's slowly sinking. I mean, again, 200 scientists from the Cambridge Working Group have signed a petition saying that they have looked at this virus and they believe it came out of a lab and it needs to be an investigation. Okay, 200 scientists, independent of this doctor in the United States, have said this. But anyway, I'm going to keep going. I have some more videos to show you, unless you want to continue to listen to the rest of the hearing. It's another minute and 40 seconds. You want to hear the rest of it?
You can go ahead and show me another video.
All right. So I'm going to click this off and then share my screen. Well, my screen should be still shared, right? All right, so
yeah, and you can also show that statistic that you were showing me earlier.
Well, refresh my memory. What was that statistic?
It was the openvar.com.
Oh, yes. I got to pull up that website. Yep. All right. So here's the CNN. Let me pull this back up. Here's a CNN interview with the former head of the CDC. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to play this now. All right. Now, I'm not going to play the whole clip. I'm going to stop after the interview. But if you want me to keep going, just let me know.
Okay.
All right. Here we go.
So Dr. Robert Redfield, the former CDC director, is speaking out for the first time, saying publicly where he believes the coronavirus that caused the pandemic came from. These extraordinary comments come in a new interview for a CNN documentary airing this weekend. Dr. Sanjay Gupta joins us now. And Sanjay, Dr. Redfield says he's giving his opinion, but I have to say, I think you're about to break some pretty significant news here.
Yeah, I mean, this was extraordinary, John, for certain. He is the former CDC director. He's spent his entire career as a virologist. I interviewed all 6 of these doctors sort of in the form of an autopsy, really to sort of meticulously dissect exactly what had happened here. Really no pre-agenda. Dr. Redfield, when we sat down to talk, he wanted to start at the beginning, the origins of this virus, what he believed actually transpired. Take a listen.
If I was to guess, this virus started transmitting somewhere in September, October in Wuhan.
September, October.
That's my own view. It's an only opinion. I'm allowed to have opinions now. I am of the point of view that I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory, escaped. Other people don't believe that. That's fine. Science will eventually figure it out. It's not unusual for respiratory pathogens that are being worked on in a laboratory to infect the laboratory worker.
It is also not unusual for that type of research to be occurring in Wuhan. The city is a widely known center for viral studies in China, including the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which has experimented extensively with bat coronaviruses.
It is a remarkable conversation I feel like we're having here, because you are the former CDC director and you were the director at the time this was all happening.
For the first time, the former CDC director is stating publicly that he believes this pandemic started months earlier than we knew, and that it originated not at a wet market, but inside a lab in China.
These are 2 significant things to say, Dr. Redfield.
And that's not implying any intentionality. It's my opinion, right? But I am a virologist. I have spent my life in virology. I do not believe this somehow came from a bat to a human. And at that moment in time, the virus that came to the human became one of the most infectious viruses that we know in humanity for human-to-human transmission. Normally, when a pathogen goes from a zoonotic to human, it takes a while for it to figure out how to become more and more efficient in human-to-human transmission. I just don't think this makes biological sense.
So in the lab, do you think that process of becoming more efficient was happening? Is that what you were suggesting?
Yeah, let's just say I have coronavirus that I'm working on. Most of us in the lab, we're trying to grow a virus. We try to help make it grow better and better and better and better and better and better, so we can do experiments and figure out about it. That's the way I put it together.
It's a pretty extraordinary conversation, and a little glimpse of what we revealed sort of within these couple of hours. I should point out the World Health Organization calls the lab leak theory unlikely, and Chinese officials have started increasingly pointing to a multiple origin theory, saying that this pandemic may have started in multiple places, even around the world, including U.S. military labs. That's unsubstantiated, but that's sort of the back and forth that's happening right now. We still don't know, a year later, exactly.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That was part of. Do you want to continue to listen to the rest of the video?
No, I'm good.
You all right? Okay. All right. Yeah. So here's another video here that deals with the same thing. Do you have any questions about that guy, the former head of the CDC?
No, I don't really have a question. I just see that, the person that was talking, it seemed like they basing it off of speculation rather than facts. So again, it just seemed like that's their perception, or that's just their thoughts, like they're second guessing about the virus. So that's just what I see. I just see there's just a lot of speculation regarding to that.
Have you considered that there's only 2 options? There is an option, there's 3, but there's 3 major options. The option that we've been given is that it developed naturally. That's option 1.
Yeah.
Option 2 is that, like the Chinese are saying in their press conferences, it developed in 2 places at one time, naturally. And then there's a third option, that it was created in the laboratory using gain of function. Now, the reason why I give the former CDC director some credence is because this is a highly esteemed professional. This is not some dude like me in his office somewhere making videos. He's privy to documents that you and I will never see. Top secret documents. Documents are classified. Information that's classified. And for him to come out and say that under these circumstances would be like the 200 scientists. They're giving their professional opinion, and there's really a media blackout on it, except for, like what we just saw here with CNN. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is, if science is truly science, and the goal of science is to test theories, then we should be open to numerous possibilities. We shouldn't be constructed and constricted to just saying, well, this is the theory we have, and that's it, done deal, that's how it happened. No, science says, no, we need to test it. We need to peer review it. We need to look at all the different options and then come up with the best option. And we're not doing that in this circumstance. And I think that's a prime example that something nefarious is going on.
Well, I do agree with you, right, that you can't just base it off of one theory. You're right. But also that's why in science they do a lot of ongoing research. So it's a nonstop thing. You just don't stop at a theory, especially something that's a conspiracy, and that's it. You go further, you try to investigate more into information. So, like going back to that article that you showed from US Today, that just had to be based off of research. It wasn't just based off of somebody just pull something off the top of their head and just put it out there. They had to actually look into these things and investigate into them and questioning. So it requires a lot of time to do so. It's just not something that's just going to happen overnight. It's just something that it's going to take a lot of process.
Correct. All right. This guy is Josh Rogan. He is a writer, a contributor to CNN, and he wrote a book about the virus, and he's on the Joe Rogan
I
show.
heard of him. I never seen his show, but I heard of him.
Yeah. So there's Joe Rogan, who is the host of the show, and then there's Josh Rogan, who's actually the person that he's interviewing. So I'm going to let you hear this. All right.
Okay.
All right.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
So they hired the best friends of the lab to investigate the lab.
Right.
It's like hiring Robert Kardashian to investigate OJ. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
and when they interview these guys on TV, they always say the same thing. Don't you want the best friends of the lab to interview the lab? Isn't that, we know the most about it. We're doing the research. It would be like Robert Kardashian being like, I know OJ really well. Let me do the investigation. I'll figure out the truth. I'll get to the bottom of this.
Right.
So anyway, they go to the lab for 3 hours, talk to their best friends, look them straight in the eye. Did you do it? No, we didn't do it. Okay, case closed. And then they concluded in their WHO report that the lab theory is very unlikely and we don't need to look into the lab, case closed. And everybody was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. We can't have that. These guys have a conflict of interest. Their careers are tied to this lab. If the lab were found to be guilty, again, we don't know. I don't know. You don't know. Peter Daszak doesn't know. Well, maybe he knows, but I don't think he knows. Their legacy, this entire project of $200 million rather, to dig up viruses all over the world would be kaput. It would have to necessarily be stopped, this whole industry. Okay, now here's the part where I'm going to get a little controversial. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay?
Sure.
Okay, so if I've gotten you that far, again, just to say that I don't blame anyone out there for having this notion that this lab accident theory is kind of a kooky thing that was cooked up by Mike Pompeo or something like that. I get why you think that. But now he's not here anymore, right? We don't have to argue about Trump anymore, hopefully, ever again, right? And we can just look at the piles of circumstantial evidence, and there's plenty of circumstantial evidence that it could have come. There's some circumstantial evidence that it could have come from nature. I feel that the lab theory has more compelling circumstantial evidence because, again, they were doing that kind of research. There was a huge cover-up, and the virus database went mysteriously offline somehow in December 2019.
There's also the evolution of the virus itself, right?
That's what Robert Redfield, who was the CDC director at the time, a trained virologist, he says, I took a look at this virus and I concluded that it's so powerful that it must have been evolved in a lab setting. And he pointed to the gain of function research, and they called him a racist, a conspiracy theorist, and all the rest.
Yeah.
All right. Now, here's the controversial part. The godfather of that industry, the head of the pyramid, is a guy you may have heard of called Anthony Fauci.
I've heard of that guy.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear more?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Anthony Fauci, the hero of the pandemic, is the most important person in the world of gain-of-function research there is. In other words, he is, and not just him, there's Francis Collins at the NIH and some other people, but basically, he is the one dispersing all of the grants for this. He is the one who pushed to turn it back on after Obama turned it back off. That's a whole nother crazy story. He turned it back on without really consulting the White House. That's breaking news. Never been reported. Just broke some news on your show right now.
Really?
Yes. He consulted the Office of Science and Technology Policy, which is like a part of the White House, but he didn't, the White House put a pause on it, and then he like undid the pause. The details are a little sketchy. I'm not saying that he did anything necessarily wrong or illegal. I'm just saying that a lot of people that I know inside the Trump administration had no idea this had turned back on. He found a way to turn it back on in the mess of the Trump administration, because the Trump administration is full of a bunch of clowns, right? So at the end, you could get stuff done if you just knew how to work the system. Fauci is the head of that system.
Why? What was his incentive?
That's everything. That's his whole career. What he would say, and to be fair, again, to be perfectly fair to him, he's trying to predict the next pandemic. He thinks this is the way that you predict the next pandemic. By digging up all these viruses, we got to dig up more and more viruses and play around with them, because we're going to find how they evolve. Then we're going to come up with therapeutics and vaccines and all this stuff.
But there were.
Sis, did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Just to emphasize, Anthony Fauci is the top person in the world for gain of function. Like, he is the man when it comes to developing viruses and making it stronger. Now, I have other interviews with this Josh Rowland guy on CNN that I'm going to show you too, basically discussing the same thing. This is not, telling you, this is bigger than what is being discussed in the mainstream media. But I wanted to get your feedback. I mean, because we're halfway through the video now. What did you think so far about what he said?
Well, the guy seemed to be pretty interesting. I mean, just basically he just expressing his opinion about Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I see, just expressing his views and his opinions.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to restart it or start it back again. Here we go. You okay with that?
Yeah, you can start it.
Are you going to end at 8 o'clock? Is that when we're stopping?
I can end it around 8:10 because I wanted you to show the statistics.
Oh, yes. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So we'll get through this. Okay. Here we go.
We're no therapeutics.
Right, but we did have vaccines quicker than most because the DARPA funded a program to make our mRNA vaccines 10 years ago that actually worked. That was a military-funded program, but we can get to that in a second.
Not related to this.
Right. So that's a very fair observation. In other words, the $200 million program predict and preempt the pandemic failed to predict and preempt the pandemic, but it may have also sparked the pandemic.
But
Exactly.
Here's my question. When I read all about the research they were doing, I didn't see what they were doing to prevent it. I just saw what they were doing was examining these viruses and trying to find out how they work and trying to see what happens when they get more virulent. But what I didn't see is that the invention of therapeutics.
I hear what you're saying. I'm willing to give these scientists the benefit of the doubt that their honest goal was to do good science to prevent and predict.
Oh, I am too. That's not what I'm saying.
I don't know if they produce therapeutics.
What I'm saying, but did they have a lack of funding in that department? Was all the funding
I don't know.
allocated towards examining the viruses themselves and not towards developing some sort of a therapeutic?
I don't. It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
But what I do know is that the majority of their time was spent digging up viruses in the wild and bringing them back to these labs.
But Fauci, when he started it back up, did he start it back up with the intent to just uncover more information so we'll be better informed?
His argument was, this is vital research. The longer we pause it, the more danger that we're in. I'm trying to save the world. And so we got to turn this stuff back on because this is how we're going to save the world from the next pandemic, which I'm sure he believed. I'm sure a lot of these people believed. But there is another school of thought out there And the other school of thought is, hey, instead of taking $200 million to dig up viruses and make them more dangerous, why don't you put that money into monitoring and surveillance in the places where the bats are? In other words, if you put resources where the outbreaks are likely to occur, then you can squelch them when they pop up, because actually viruses change every day, and trying to predict the pandemic is a fool's errand. That's another scientific school of thought. That's not the one that Fauci's in.
Right.
But the reason that there's no debate about this is because the NIH and NIAID structure is such that everyone gets funded by them. They're funding everybody. So if you are in the field of virology, there's a 99.99% chance that you're getting money from Anthony Fauci in one way or another. Your grants, your careers, your chairmanships. So there's no dissent allowed in that community. I learned a lot about the scientific community and the virology
No
community.
dissent allowed. So no debate.
I talk to scientists all the time who say, I think this gain of function research is really dangerous. I can't say anything. I'm going to lose my grant. I'm going to lose my career. This happens to me all the time. And when Robert Redfield spoke up, because he's a big mocker and he's head of CDC, he said it's my opinion that it came from the lab, because he can't declassify a bunch of classified information on CNN. Right. But he's talking about what he knows, right? It's obvious to everyone who's in the know that he's seen the intelligence, and he's not just talking out of his ass. He's not some Joe Schmo virologist. He was the head of the CDC. He's seen all of the secret stuff, even the stuff I never got a whiff of. And he went on TV and said, hey, I think this probably came from the lab. We should probably look at the lab. And he was called a racist and a conspiracy theorist.
But what
people,
he's saying, but Fauci's disagreed with him publicly.
Right. So that's the thing. So if you just think about it, just for once, again, I'm begging people out there, just like, think again. Whatever you thought about the lab accident, it doesn't matter. Whatever you tweeted in 2020 March, nobody cares, right? And the same thing for the media.
Let it go. Yeah.
Because it's all confirmation bias now. Like, oh, I tweeted this in March 2020 and I want it to hold up. Nobody cares what you tweeted in March 2020. Let's just have a rational
moratorium
conversation about what are the likely ways we got into this horrible crisis that we're in. And so for people in the know who are listening to Robert Redfield, it's clear that he's calling out Anthony Fauci. In other words, he's pointing to the gain of function research, which he knows because he's the head of the CDC, reports up to Fauci. He knows that, right?
Right.
But he's not saying that because even that's too hot for him to say. It's hot, and the scientists are not going to say that either. Now you have a lot of people sort of on the right-wing media and the MAGA media who've been saying that for a long time, but they don't have any credibility with the mainstream media. And I'm just like in that weird space where, like, I wrote a book about, U.S.-China relationship, so I had all this good reporting, and I'm not MAGA media because I criticize Trump in my columns all the time. So I am mainstream media, but I'm saying we should look at the lab, and it messes with people's minds because they're like, oh, why is he doing this? Why is Josh pushing the lab? I'm not pushing the lab.
That's the problem today with these rigid ideologies.
Exactly. Everyone's on teams. It's all factional.
Yes.
But I don't care. I don't even care if the lab accident theory is true. If the natural origin theory is true, then great. I will leave the ticker tape parade celebrating Peter Daszak and Anthony Fauci down, Fifth Avenue. I'm happy to do that. All I'm saying is that we have to also look into these labs, and that we can't hire the best friends of the lab to look into the labs because they have a clear conflict of interest and they fucked it up already.
Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience for free, only on
Okay. I would say that Joe Rogan asked the right questions at this point. Okay. He asked the right questions to his guests about, regard to the whole thing about Fauci and the purpose of the funding, and that the funding was, like, he basically asked him when the funding be used to do more research on the virus, so that way it could bring more awareness to the people people across the nation, across the world. So, I mean, I can't exactly translate everything that he was saying, but basically, to sum it up, that's what he was saying. So I think that John Reagan was asking the right question to his guests. And I kind of seen where his guests kind of just stumble a little bit and trying to figure out how to respond to that answer, how to give a response, how to answer the question. But for the most part, I think it's a good video, it's a good interview overall. But yeah, I would say John Reagan asked some good questions.
Got it. What happens too is, and I'm glad that Josh Rogan, the guy that was being interviewed, the reporter, I'm glad he made this statement. He said, you know what? Forget about your position and what you might have posted on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Because what happens is they state their position, and even if new information comes to them, they don't want to change because they feel like their reputation is on the line. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just not like that. Like if I'm wrong, I have no problem saying I'm wrong. But I find that the more and more I get involved with this type of information or just people in general, the ability to humble yourself and to admit, hey, I was wrong. I got some more information. The roadmap I had wasn't correct. And you know what? I reserve the right to change my mind. And I think people dig in instead of doing that. You know what I mean? Which leads to ignorance. But that's neither here nor there. So I agree it was a good interview, but I just think people need to be open-minded because this thing is going to just get bigger and bigger in terms of uncovering the fact that this could have actually happened as an option. So, but I guess enough on that. We've dealt on that. You want to see open VAERS. Have you been to the website yet?
Yes, I've been to the website.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to share my screen and show everybody what open VAERS is in case they want to go to it. There's no audio here. There's just a regular.
Okay, that's fine.
Screen. And if you need me to expand it, I can do that too. You want me to make it bigger or is that cool?
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right. All right. So open VAERS is basically it's CDC's reporting system and you can read it right here. VAERS is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. And it was put in place in 1990. Now, for those people that don't understand the whole history of vaccines in terms of their liability, because this is why this was put about. This has to do with liability, okay? In 1986, the vaccine industry, if you will, the big companies that produce vaccines in this country, they went to Congress and said, look, we're going to stop making vaccines, okay? And the reason we're going to stop making vaccines in the United States is because we're getting sued too much with adverse effects that are happening from the vaccines, people getting injured, etc. And it wasn't until 1988 that a bill was created that basically took away any insurance liability or gave liability protection to the vaccine industry. And basically what it said was, look, if you get a vaccine in the United States and you have an adverse reaction from the smallest thing to your death, you cannot sue the vaccine company. In fact, when you get a vaccine, you sign off that right. Your only recourse if something happens bad to you after you take a vaccine is you got to go to this VAERS court or VAERS arbitration, Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting. And you go to a VAERS court and they arbitrate between you and the vaccine to try to figure out, okay, did you actually die or are you actually paralyzed as a result of the vaccine? And then they come up with a report. And then they rule and pay you out money if you are awarded damages. I think what a lot of people don't know is that since 1988 and now, you know how much money has been paid out to people that were injured by vaccines, Tiffany?
How much?
$4.7 billion. So for those who don't understand money and math, right, and I'm not saying that your audience don't, but I like to just be real basic. $1 billion is 1,000 million. So you got $1 million and you got 1,000 million, that's $1 billion. They paid out $4.7 billion to people who were injured by vaccines since 1988. So for anybody that says vaccines are perfect, they do a good job, there's no potential bad effects, they don't just pay out that kind of money if these people were lying. That's number one. Number two, on this statistical, or data website that we're about to look at called Open VAERS, they put a link to a report that was generated. Matter of fact, I can pull the report up because this is very important to know prior to reading these stats. This Lazarus Report was a grant that was done back in 2010. And it concluded that only 1% of all of the adverse reactions from vaccines are reported. Now, this was done by the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Group. All right. It's called the Lazarus study. And I'll go right to where it mentions that. So it says adverse events. I'm going to make sure this is larger.
Okay.
It says adverse events from drugs and vaccines are common but underreported. Although 25% of ambulatory patients experience an adverse drug event, less than 0.3% of all adverse drug events and 1 to 13% of serious events are reported to the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. Likewise, fewer than 1%. Now remember that. Remember that number. Fewer than 1% of vaccines adverse events are reported. When you hear that less than 1% are reported, and then I click on COVID stats, which is right here, and you look at deaths from COVID, from the vaccine, rather, not from COVID, from the vaccine, from the Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson vaccine, there's been 4,000 deaths reported. You have to multiply that number times 100. Are you with me, sister? Think about what I'm telling you.
I mean,
4,057 times 100. There's an estimation that over 400,000 people have been killed by the vaccine.
Okay, I see where you're going with that, but I also will say this now. Getting back to the statement where you said that people think vaccines are 100%. I'm here to tell you that it's not always 100% because the whole purpose of the vaccine is not going to. The thing is, what people don't understand, the vaccination itself does not cure the virus per se, but what it does, it just builds up the immune system so your body could be able to fight off the virus. If just in case if it come in contact with it. So that way your immune system is strong enough, and by your immune system being strong, it will make sure that it'll make it hard for the virus to get in and try to take over your immunity, and it cause you to be sick or whatnot. Also,
all right, let me respond to that. You said it helps. Go ahead.
I was trying to see what else I was going to say. Yeah, that's all. It just strengthens your immune system. So, there is still some possibility that you may come across a disease or a virus, etc. But at the same time, your possibility is at a minimum. You know what I'm saying? Versus somebody, let's just say versus someone who has not been vaccinated, and they have a greater chance of being exposed to the virus than someone who has been vaccinated. I'm not saying that you won't catch the virus at all. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, it's just the numbers, it's lesser, you know what I mean? So that's one of the main reasons why people vaccinated, because they want to make sure that their immune system is strong enough to, fight off the virus. However, everybody's immune system don't work the same. So everybody don't have, some people's immune system are weaker than others. And some people have health illness, which may cause the system to shut down if they get vaccinated, so like, especially if they're taking medication and they have to constantly take medication and they then got vaccinated for the virus, then that can play some type of effect on their immunity because they already got some type of sickness going on and their immune system is not functioning as well as someone who has a very healthy, strong immune system. So it all depends on your body, and it depends on how your body reacts. So I'm not a person that's going to tell everybody to go get vaccinated because you have that choice. If you choose not to get vaccinated, then that's fine, but you can't, tell somebody else not to get vaccinated because you choose not to get vaccinated. However, what I did find out today, that the vaccine is not FDA approved, but
that's right.
Okay, but the FDA did approve, but the FDA gave emergency usage authorization. So basically, by it being emergency usage authorization, they gave it the okay to let people, go ahead and take the vaccine, take the Pfizer and the Moderna, what's it, Moderna,
No,
whatever.
it's the Moderna, but the problem with
The Moderna
skipping
and the Johnson & Johnson.
Johnson.
The
But the
Johnson
problem
and
with doing
Johnson,
that is that they skip phase 3 trials in humans. They only did trials on humanized mice. So if you say it's FDA emergency whatever, that is
emergency
not
use
approval.
authorization.
That's not approval. And I could
No,
argue that. I'm sorry.
I just said that. I said that it's not approved as of yet. No, it hasn't been approved. But
right. So
what I'm saying, the FDA gave it okay to use it as an emergency authorization. That's all.
The problem with that is I can show you a video where half of the members of the NIH employees, half of the members of the CIA, the employees, have not even taken the virus themselves. You have a large population of people that refuse to take this virus until it's approved.
You mean vaccination?
Vaccination. I'm sorry. that will not take this vaccination until it's fully approved because they understand the implications, and it was created too fast. So all I'm saying is that if you look at this stat right here, where there's potentially 400,000 people, if you multiply this times 100 using the Lazarus Report, then your chances of dying from the vaccine are very close to dying from the actual virus. So in my opinion, it's not worth the risk. Why put yourself through this risk if the goal is to build your immune system? I know I'm not going to have an adverse reaction to taking more vitamins like zinc and vitamin D and vitamin C. But chances are, if I take this vaccine and I already got a pre-existing condition, a heart condition, or if I'm elderly like Hank Aaron or Cicely Tyson, this vaccine could potentially take me out.
And I kill me. And I understand it, and I get where you're coming from with that. So again, as I was saying before, it depends on your immune system. Like me, I just took the vaccination not too long ago. I took my first dose, and that was the Pfizer. So the only thing that I feel as far as the effect is concerned is that my arms are, feel a little funny. You know what I'm saying? Because once they stick the needle in your arm, you gonna feel a little, a little minor pain or something. But other than that, I was feeling fine afterwards. I didn't experience any other type of illness, or I didn't experience any type of sickness. And I've been around some people who got the second dose of the vaccination. Now, they did say they did feel some type of side effect as far as the pain in their arms and all of that. But after a couple of days, they felt better. So it didn't really affect them. It didn't really bother them. So again, if you got people who done took both vaccines, by the way, and they don't have any type of health issues behind it, then we can't say that, we can, you can say that, based on the immunity, based on how their body is functioning and how their body responds to it, these people were able to get by. So, it depends on your body. It depends on how your body responds to the vaccination. If you one of those people that has a serious health issue, and the fact that because of your health issue and you're very skeptical about taking the vaccination, then I would suggest you taking it. I would not suggest you taking it, unless you get the approval from your doctor. If you talk to your doctor and you let your doctor know what's going on, you want to take the vaccination. I would say if you somebody that has diabetes, high blood pressure, or something like that, you need to talk to your doctor first before you go get vaccinated. That's just my opinion. That's my argument.
Let me ask you this though: are you concerned? For example, and I'm going to use this as an analogy, as a
Okay.
good example. But when Hyundai, the car manufacturer, started selling cars, one of their biggest features was that they said, we're going to give you a 100,000-mile warranty, right? And people said, wow, a new car maker just came out and they're offering people a 100,000-mile warranty. They must really believe in their product. They must really believe that that car is going to last them 10 years. It's 10 years, 100,000 miles. Most car makers say, nope, 5 years, 50,000 miles, right? You with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
So the company is willing to put all the liability by ensuring that the fact that they're going to give you a 100,000-mile warranty and a 10-year warranty. So let's invert that. Let's reverse it. If somebody comes along and say, look, I'm going to shoot this in your arm. Oh, and by the way, I created it. But if anything happens to you, I'm not going to pay out. You got to go to the government for that. Because the likelihood is high that something will happen based on the numbers that I've just showed you. I don't want any responsibility if it does. Name any other industry in the United States or in the world for that matter, that if it harms you, they are not liable. The reason why this is in place is because so many people were being harmed. If we truly lived in an independent system where the vaccine companies had to stand behind their word and their product, they would be out of business. Why do I say that? Because they've paid out the government on their behalf has paid out almost $5 billion in damages. Think about what that means, right? Why would you go eat a hamburger from a restaurant that just paid out $5 billion in damages? You say something's wrong with those hamburgers. I'm not eating it. Think about it. It's just crazy.
But at the end of the day, as of right now, because it has not been FDA approved as far as that go, is just only emergency usage authorization. You have a choice. As an individual, you have a choice whether you want to get vaccinated. You don't have to, and nobody can really make you get vaccinated. They just can't make you do that. I mean, just hear me out. Just hear me out. Like, they can't really do that, especially if it's not FDA approved. They can't make you go get vaccinated.
But
that's
it's
something
coming to that.
Once it gets FDA approved, but as of right now, it's just the emergency usage authorization. So,
I got it. But even that's wrong, right? To say that. So yeah, right now it's emergency use authorization, but the flu shot is something that the FDA has approved. I've never got one, never plan on getting one.
I don't plan on getting a flu shot either.
But the point is that this particular vaccine is going to be codified in law. What do I mean? Airlines are going to tell you if you don't have the vaccination, they might not let you fly. Employers are going to tell you, well, if you want this job, you got to go get vaccinated. Schools are saying, colleges and universities, if you want to come to this school, you got to get vaccinated. They are forcing people. They're even talking about a vaccine passport, where if you want to go to a concert, where if you want to go to a football game, yeah, you need to show that you've been vaccinated. That is so crazy if you really sit back and think about it, because famous people like Bill Maher and others, right, and people that are not famous have taken the vaccine, and you know what? They still came down with the disease. So if you can still get COVID after being vaccinated, why get it? If you can still pass COVID along at being asymptomatic after you get the vaccine, why get the vaccine? If you can still die, right, after you get the vaccination from COVID, why are you getting it? It
either way it goes,
logical sense.
Either way it goes, I get what you're saying, brother. But either way it goes, you're gonna die anyways, whether you get vaccinated or not. You know what I'm saying? So life ain't guaranteed to us at all, But like I told you earlier, the vaccine is not just 100%. Just because you get vaccinated doesn't mean that, you're 100% good and you're not going to ever be exposed to the virus. No, that's not how it works. You know what I'm saying? As I mentioned before, it's about your immune system. If your immune system, it helps your immune system to build itself up. So in case you come in contact with the virus, your immune system can be able to fight it off, and just fight it off. Because the virus itself is going to mutate. Once the virus gets into your system, it's not going anywhere. It lives inside the host cell. So by living inside the host cell, all it can do is mutate. That's it. But it's not going anywhere. You can't really get rid of it. So the only thing that your immune system can do is just block it to keep it from attacking it. That's all it can do. You know what I'm saying? But you have to do other alternatives besides just taking the vaccination. You have to also make sure that you maintain your health daily on a consistent basis. You have to make sure that you eating like you're supposed to, taking your vitamins or eating anything like vegetables and fruits, and getting a lot of proteins and stuff like that. So you don't just take the virus and you're not doing nothing to maintain your health at the same time. I mean, come on, that just doesn't make sense. You just don't do that. But again, going back to what I was telling you, it also depends on how your body function is. And as of right now, you have a choice to take the COVID vaccination, but also there's places where you still required to wear a mask, whether you got vaccinated or not. You still required to wear a mask. You still required to follow that procedure. Now, some places, they can let you come in without a mask, if you show them their vaccination card. You know what I'm saying? Some places will, but for most part, these places, they still make you wear a mask. They still tell you to be careful. And even if you go to the airport, if you going to the airport and you flying, you either gonna have to take a COVID test, or you're gonna have to show proof that you got vaccinated. But if you didn't get vaccinated, then you're gonna have to take a COVID test to make sure you're negative. That's what they're gonna do. So if you don't take the COVID test and you don't have any proof to show that you ain't got no coronavirus and you're not tested positive, then of course you're not gonna fly, because they gotta see proof that you have not been exposed to the coronavirus and that you ain't got, you're not tested positive. So
well, how much sense does that make if you could get the vaccine and still get the virus? So I got the vaccine, I come up to the airport and I say, here, I got my vaccine, and I go on the plane and still infect people with the virus because I can still be carrying it. See, it doesn't logically make sense.
What I'm saying is you still have a chance, but your chance is not at a greater amount. So,
but is that the news media? Is that the people that are promoting it? I mean, think about it. They're really what other event in human history will you have to convince the people to take something for their benefit? Right? There is no precedent for this. You don't see people drop dead in the streets or anything like that. If this was a real pandemic with people dying at the scale that they say they're dying at, the average person has a 99.8% chance of not dying. Think about that. Not dying. And if you're a child, if you're under 21, you got a 0% chance of dying. But they're giving this vaccine to children. Children have a next to 0% chance of dying from this. It's insanity to me. It really is. It's like we're living in the Twilight Zone.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get a better understanding about vaccines first. Let's get a better understanding. So that way we won't be confused here. All right. So check this out. Now let's go up here on Wikipedia. Anyways, it says a vaccine is a biological preparation that provides active acquired immunity to a particular infectious disease. A vaccine typically contains an agent that resembles a disease-causing microorganism and is often made from weakening or killed forms of the microbe, its toxin, or one of its surface protein. The agent stimulates the body's immune system to recognize the agent as a threat. Let me read that part again. The agent stimulates the body's immune system to recognize the agent as a threat, destroy it, and to further recognize and destroy any of the microorganisms associated with that agent that it may encounter in the future. Vaccine can be prophylactic to prevent or ameliorate the effects of a future infection by a natural or wild pathogen, or therapeutic to fight a disease that has already occurred, such as cancer. All right. So just stop right there. Just right there. Now you getting where I'm coming from with that? Now that I read that information, are you getting where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand what that document says, and I've heard that before, and maybe in some cases it's valid, but in this cases, with this experimental mRNA vaccine,
Brother, are you there?
talk about that.
Are you there?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay. Okay, brother, your screen is froze. Your screen is froze. Well, are you there? Hello? Okay. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. So let me see if I can get him back on here. Okay. Well, the brother dropped out, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation that we had. It was very wonderful. I appreciate it. I mean, I thought it was a good conversation, very informative to just hear the opposing views. So with that being said, you guys have a good one, and I'll talk